your parents emigrated here from Pakistan. Is that correct?
That's right.
Can you talk about growing up, immigrant parents, what that was like for you, and just no rush. I just want to hear about your life.
It's only been recently, in the last like 5, 10 years of my life, that I've really been able to like metabolize the story of my family, which is really like, it's a very humbling thing. I think it's given me a lot more perspective, especially now, like in the times that we're living in right now, where immigration is a hot button topic. And it's so. I feel so grateful to be the child of immigrants. It has given me so much. And, just to give you the idea of the trajectory of my family. So my dad grew up in Pakistan, in Karachi. My mom also grew up in Pakistan, Karachi area, but then we also have roots in Tanzania.
Oh, cool.
As well. So we still have a lot of family in Dar es Salaam, which is the East Africa. And they ended up moving to England. So they moved to London, England, soon after they got married. And my older brother was born there.
Why did they move to England?
So my dad is a physician, and he began his career. He studied medicine in Pakistan originally, and then moved to England to start practicing. So he worked at a hospital in England.
Was there no job opportunity in Pakistan, or like what was the impetus for being like, we want to get out of here?
I'll drop a line from the show, but for a better life, like to seek a better life or better opportunities, and Pakistan can give a lot, but there's also, it's still under development, and there's an allure to go and, take everything that you've known and learned and apply yourself to have better opportunities for yourself. And
did they speak English before they moved to? Okay.
Yeah, they did. And I'm sure, like, that's stuff. Even I'm so curious about it. I'm still uncovering now, as I've gotten older and learning more about and learning how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Because I think like there's a divide that happens when you're younger with your parents, and they might shield you from a lot of the stories and the things that they struggled with or grew up with. And it's only now, like when you finally come into your own, that you're starting to have the curiosity about what it was like when you were like, when they were your age.
Yeah.
Even I'm so curious. But, there, my older brother was born. And I think the primary motive for them to move to the U.S., which was in 1992, was, the pay is not great necessarily in the U.K. And so when my dad immigrated here, he had to retake all of his exams.
Oh, my gosh.
That's something that my mother-in-law, same thing, they had to do. You're fully practicing, fully licensed doctor, but you still have to retake everything when you immigrate to the country. But he did, and he moved to Detroit in 1992. I was born in 1993, so I'm first generation American. I was born here in the country. When I run for president, I'm legally allowed to do it. So I don't really claim Detroit any more than I was born there, because I don't remember much of it. But then my dad did his fellowship at the University of Louisville in Kentucky, and then ended up in London, Kentucky. So they go from London, England to London, Kentucky, where my dad still works in that same like healthcare field for almost 25 years.
That's
25
awesome.
plus years, almost going on 30 years. Serving the same community of people in rural southeastern Kentucky. And and talking about that chapter of my life, which is still part of my life. I was just reflecting on this recently. London, Kentucky, it's a smaller town, and we were one of very few people of color, Muslim families growing up in a predominantly white Baptist Christian town. And like you could imagine, there's there's an otherness that tends to happen, but there's also assimilation that happens. You learn where you are, you interact with people, and for the most part, people are very understanding. They're very kind. They're very welcoming, and it was my life, like for better or for worse, that was my life. And some of my fondest memories and a lot of my values have been shaped because of that small town sort of feel. And where we grew up, we had so much access to nature and just open space and just grass and trees and creeks and a childhood of misspent youth out just like exploring, and something I really feel like is lacking nowadays with just kids and the infrastructure and safety and all of these things, where you don't necessarily have the same opportunity to just leave your house as a kid and just go and roam around, hang out with the neighbors' kids, go into the woods and just build stuff. We would build, I had a neighbor named Landon who, and a couple of neighbors in that neighborhood, just a couple of the boys, we would build these forts in the woods with just stuff that we have found, or like if somebody was working on some construction project at another house and they'd had some discarded pieces of metal or wood or tarp or whatever, we would just drag that shit and like take it into the woods, and we would build these like amazing things. And they had these ponds where we would build these like second story ledges and we would fish off of them, and like it was such a tactile upbringing. And I think tactile is a really key word, because we just would move around. Now, shifting gears a bit, when we're talking about school and growing up, and when you're talking about deeper things like identity, religion, racism, bullying, like all of these things, like that was a part of it.
Was it?
Yeah, like not don't want to like downplay it, but I also don't want to like make it worse than it actually was, because I think there will always be shitty people wherever you go. Always. Like it doesn't matter, and geographically, like you can find those people everywhere. I'm very fortunate in that where I grew up in London at South Laurel High School, I had some of the best, like closest friends. And as a tangent, when I think about Life of Pi, when I think about Pi as a character, for those of you that don't know the story of Life of Pi, Pi in his upbringing identifies as a fully practicing Muslim, Hindu, and Christian, which I find awesome.
I loved that part.
I love it.
I loved that part of the show, yeah.
Because you're giving validity and credence and just value towards all of these different things, and you can derive truth from all of it to find understanding and betterment for your own life. I'm like, it's beautiful. When I think back on how I grew up, I think about those friends that were very, very Christian, but I would learn so much from them, and they were true Christians in the capacity of like they were so welcoming and kind and understanding and inclusive and educative. Like it was awesome to just like learn, and there was a mutual exchange of that. I felt safe enough to tell them more about what growing up as a Muslim in a place where there weren't a lot of Muslims. And for them, that was an experience. We got to share so much of our culture. And there was also happened to be a thriving Hindu community there as well. And one of my closest spiritual advisors and like a second mother to me, her name is Sumita Chatterjee. I've known her, again, almost all of my life. I mean, it has given me so much wisdom in terms of, her perspective on things and on her culture, on meditation, on like just finding peace. And I think of that trifecta of people just imbuing you with lessons and imbuing you with wisdom. And even though there was difficulty in terms of people that didn't understand, that looked at me and saw, especially in a post 9/11 society, people were angry, people were scared, and people would lash out because of those things. And there's so much ignorance underneath that fueled it. And I think when I was growing up, I was rightfully angry and scared reciprocally.
Of course,
because it was so unwarranted. But I think in looking back in hindsight, you can look back with kinder eyes or just more understanding eyes, and it doesn't absolve any of it, but it does give you a sense of just like understanding where is it coming from.
Yeah.
And I think
it wasn't personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just when you're talking about identity, and this is the last thing I'll sort of touch on. When I think about how I grew up in Kentucky in this in this sort of cultural shifts, right? Like I would go home and I would speak in Gujarati, which was our native language that I spoke with my family, in a Muslim household. And it was like almost like a very contained sort of, just way of living, and I would go home to that. We would exist in that, but then I'd go to school and just be surrounded by other white kids, and you just do your best to fit in. And it became this game of hats. I'm like, of the code switching of like, I'd go home and this is who I was. I'd go to school and this is who I was. And it was almost like acting from a young age, right? Like what mask are you putting on today to survive in whatever environment that you're in? And a lot of that is unconscious, and you're not really thinking about the ramifications of that or the psychological impact that could have on you until much later. And that wasn't until college that I really had to it was a reckoning of selves, right? Of understanding how much of myself I had compromised in terms of pushing away my heritage, my identity, because of the fear of how other people would react to it, because I had a lot of negative feedback towards that side of myself. I would literally whitewash myself to try to not ruffle any feathers so I could just, move through the world. And that was tough, I think that took some time to really figure out like what I was doing. And, there were conversations had with lots of different people. Therapy helped tremendously, and talking with other people that knew that, especially in college, when you meet other people, because I was still in Kentucky, but the world opened up a little bit more, and I got to expose myself to other Desi people, South Asian people, and make those friends, make those connections, and develop a little bit more, frontal lobe to recognize these things and have conversations around them. But in totality, I think I look back on all of it with gratitude that I grew up in which is in effectively Trump country, what you would identify now. Because I think it's as difficult as it can be, it's given me a lot more pause to just recognize the people individually and understand where they're coming from with a lot of the stuff, even if a lot of it is coming from a place of not knowing. And yeah, and just beyond that, like the values that I've learned from growing up in Kentucky, like there are some very deep family values. There are very deep communal values. There are very deep ties to nature that exist there. And there's things that I still carry with me today and that I'm proud to carry with me today. And even though there's so much shit that has gone on in the state of Kentucky and in the politics that were involved, I'm proud to say we're like where I grew up there, and so much of what is cultivated in my life now is from the seeds that happened there. So that's it in a nutshell.